Tonight, protests in Melbourne and in Belgrade over the detention of world number one tennis player Novak Djokovic in a Melbourne immigration hotel. Also tonight, long queues, not for PCR tests, but now for rapid antigen tests. A narrow escape for shoppers as severe storms hit Victoria. And Australia dominates on the third day of the pink test. Good evening, Paul Higgins with ABC News. World number one tennis player Novak Djokovic is still in a Melbourne immigration detention hotel tonight. There has been a protest in the Serbian capital and the Australian ambassador has been called into the Foreign Affairs Ministry. The Serbian government has demanded he be moved to accommodation that fits an athlete of his rank. Here's Nicole Asher.
Protests against Novak Djokovic's detention in an immigration hotel have spread from Melbourne to Belgrade. His mother claims the cancellation of his visa was political.
They are keeping him as a prisoner. It's just not fair, it's not human.
Mr Djokovic is not being held captive in Australia. He is free to leave at any time that he chooses to do so, and Border Force will actually facilitate that.
Serbia's Foreign Affairs Ministry has also complained to the Australian ambassador, saying Djokovic should be given accommodation that's adequate for an athlete of his rank and that he's a victim of the political game.
In some way, I feel sorry for him, but at the same time, he knew the conditions since a lot of months ago.
Djokovic has been kept in a hotel with refugees and asylum seekers. Some of their supporters were arrested last night.
What we've seen is Novak arrive and be brought to this detention centre, and that opportunity has shed light on the fact that we have an absolutely arbitrary system here in Australia of border protection.
It's believed a recent COVID infection was the basis for Djokovic's Australian Open vaccine exemption, despite federal authorities writing to Tennis Australia saying that wouldn't be enough to qualify him for a visa. Tennis Australia has remained tight-lipped since the controversy broke.
I'm advised that the Victorian government officials were not aware or had not seen that correspondence. And as I've said, that's not that unusual because it's correspondence between the Commonwealth Government and Tennis Australia.
At the cricket in Sydney, the Prime Minister refused to weigh in.
We're here to talk about breast cancer today, and that's what I'm focused on.
Djokovic's visa approval was probably computer-generated, according to a former immigration official.
Clearly, these were cases that should have been flagged in the system and should have been subject to the involvement of a human being.
It has become a sort of focus point, I think, now for how the federal government has chosen to pursue its border-related restrictions.
Today is Orthodox Christmas. Djokovic would normally visit Brunswick's Holy Trinity Church.
We missed him, obviously, this year, and we were all saddened by that.
At least one more international player and an official are now being investigated by Border Force.
Well, Nicole Asher joins us now. Nick, what's happening there at the moment?
Thanks, Paul. Well, look, a fairly heavy weather system has just come through, and police were saying that they hope that might keep some of the numbers of supporters and protesters and even refugee advocates down this evening. But it does seem to be clearing up, so their wishes might come to nothing there. But, you know, throughout the afternoon and even this evening, there have been quite a big number of people around, particularly his supporters, who've been very vocal, singing and shouting to him, hoping that, their hero, Novak Djokovic, hears their well wishes on Orthodox Christmas. But look, it's expected that he'll be staying at this hotel for some time, with no indication so far that they're even considering a move to a different accommodation or one including a tennis court, Paul.
And Nick, has there been any more reaction from other tennis players about the situation?
One of the notable absences so far in the commentary has been Nick Kyrgios. Now, he's not normally shy at, speaking out or coming forward, but this afternoon he did tweet and he said that while he believes in vaccinations and he got vaccinated to protect his mother, he's not happy with the handling of the coverage of the Nick Kyrgios, the Novak Djokovic case. He's saying that it's really bad and that people need to remember that this is one of the great champions of tennis that they're, writing headlines and making memes about, and he's calling on people to remember that he was a human and to really do better, Paul.
Nicole Escher, thank you for joining us. Well, Victorians lined up again today, not for PCR tests, but for rapid antigen tests. Anyone testing positive on a rapid test will now be required to report the result. There were nearly 22,000 new cases reported today, a similar number to yesterday. Out of more than 68,000 tests processed yesterday, 32% of them were positive. And hospital admissions continue to rise, with 644 people now in hospital. 58 of them are in intensive care and 24 are on ventilators. Another 6 people have died. Leanne Wong reports.
For cafe owner James Hoskins, it's mostly business as usual, despite the latest density restrictions.
I'm one of the lucky ones, I think. We actually opened during lockdown, so I already sort of, in a way, I knew what was coming.
But while his cafe adapts to the changes, Lorena Lang is feeling less optimistic about her clothing store.
Of course it affects me. It affects everybody. I mean, it just means that when you were getting 2 people coming in, you're now getting probably less than 1.
It comes as new data from ANZ shows spending in Melbourne over the past week has fallen to lockdown levels, with customers cautious about rising infection numbers while businesses grapple with staff shortages.
As the numbers increase in COVID, the numbers drop of people coming in through the door.
Today's 21,000 new COVID infections are likely to be much higher in coming days, with rapid test results to be included in the daily tally from tomorrow. Victorians who test positive on a rapid test now need to report their results either online or by phone and answer 9 questions, including whether or not they're vaccinated, have symptoms or any existing medical conditions.
Most importantly, we'll ask you whether you're okay at home and whether you need any additional support.
At the Melbourne Showgrounds, lines for testing were again lengthy, though many weren't waiting on PCR tests.
All my friends are testing positive. We feel fine, but, got to get a free rapid test if you can. Nowhere else to get them.
Yesterday, 5,500 rapid tests were distributed at state-run sites as demand continues to soar. Medical supplier Platinum Health receiving more than 40,000 orders for rapid tests in under 3 days, forcing it to suspend all further sales. And then there's also concerns about vaccinations. On Monday, children aged 5 to 11 can begin getting vaccinated against COVID, but supply isn't the issue. For some GPs, it's staffing.
Unfortunately, we're down 19 staff, so because of that we had to furlough them.
More than 25,000 children have been booked in to receive a vaccination at state-run sites in the past day. Leanne Wong, ABC News, Melbourne.
The New South Wales government has announced some COVID restrictions will return as the state braces for a peak in cases over the next fortnight. More than 1,700 patients are now in hospital across that state, with over 38,600 cases reported today. 11 more people have died. Singing and dancing in hospitality venues have once again been banned in a move to reduce the spread of the coronavirus.
We made some changes late last year, and we're making some proportionate and sensible changes now. We have kept our society open. Now, certain people would like to go into lockdown. That is not our approach.
Elective surgeries will be suspended until mid-February. Major events will also be at risk, assessed by the Health Department. In response to the revised rules, the Tamworth Country Music Festival has been postponed until April. We're being urged not to stockpile food as supplies become patchy in parts of the country due to COVID. Supermarket shelves are empty of some goods. There's no shortage of food, but rising COVID positive cases and close contacts isolating have reduced staffing and disrupted supply lines.
Every Australian has to be part of this solution. What we're asking is that you actually don't go out and buy unnecessary amounts of a whole range of different products and hoard. What we're asking is that you buy what you need.
A national task force is working on a new COVID testing system it hopes to have ready within days to get people back to work more quickly. The World Health Organization has warned that the surging Omicron variant should not be considered mild. While appearing to be less severe than the Delta strain, the WHO says soaring infection rates and ambiguity about its impact on the elderly are why it should not be underestimated.
Omicron is hospitalizing people and it's killing people. In fact, the tsunami of cases is so huge and quick that it is overwhelming health systems around the world.
The WHO says it is also continuing to monitor a new variant that's emerged in France named IHU.
This variant does have a large number of mutations. Our understanding, it's not very well circulating.
It was first detected around the same time as Omicron and has not been labelled a variant of concern. Wild weather has whipped parts of Victoria, causing widespread damage and flash flooding. In Melbourne's west, shoppers were sent scrambling when a deluge caused a roof collapse and flooding at two shopping centres in Point Cook. The Sanctuary Lakes and Stockland shopping centres were both damaged after more than 40 millimetres of rainfall fell in short order today. Around Melbourne, flash flooding saw roads turn to rivers and cars were quickly caught in rising water. More than 1,000 homes are currently without power in the west of the state, where AusNet crews are predicting most will be reconnected sometime this evening. Emergency warnings have now been downgraded as the storm moves through the eastern suburbs. The US president has launched a blistering attack on his predecessor on the anniversary of the deadly assault on the Capitol building. Joe Biden laid blame for the assault squarely at the feet of Donald Trump, accusing him of holding a dagger to the throat of America. North America correspondent Catherine Diss has more from Washington.
It's been a year since an angry mob violently attacked the seat of American democracy.
This wasn't a group of tourists. This was an armed insurrection. They weren't looking to uphold the will of the people. They were looking to deny the will of the people.
At the scene of the unforgettable crime, President Joe Biden addressed the American people and his predecessor.
The former President of the United States of America has created and spread a web of lies about the 2020 election. He's done so because he values power over principle and because his bruised ego matters more to him than our democracy or our Constitution. He can't accept he lost.
Democrats in both chambers of Congress paused to remember.
We didn't look away after the attack on Pearl Harbor. We didn't look away after the attacks on 9/11. Just because it was Americans who did this, we cannot look away.
And we fight. Under pressure from his closest Republican allies, Donald Trump cancelled plans for a public appearance. Instead, he released a statement labelling America the laughingstock of the world because the real insurrection, he claimed, took place on the day of the 2020 election. While Washington is unlikely to play host to another January 6-style attack anytime soon, the undercurrent of fear remains, as does disbelief over the 2020 election result. The threats to democracy displayed last year haven't diluted. They're simply being expressed at a local level in spot-fire fashion across the country.
The unwillingness for people to talk and confront what happened that day and to be real about it is why it's still such a festering wound.
God bless America. In a determined show of solidarity, members of Congress stood on the steps of the Capitol as night fell. This time last year, they were trapped inside its doors, trying to carry out their democratic duty to certify the election of the 46th president. Catherine Diss, ABC News, Washington.
Russian-led forces have arrived in Kazakhstan to help quell anti-government protests. 2,500 troops from a Moscow-led security contingent are reportedly coming to the aid of the Kazakh government. The country's president declared a state of emergency and appealed to its regional allies for help after days of unrest sparked by a rise in fuel prices. Protesters have torched state buildings, including a presidential palace. Dozens of people and at least 18 members of security forces are believed to have been killed in the violence, which started earlier this week. Home building incentives introduced during the pandemic have injected billions of dollars into Australia's economy. Coupled with record low interest rates, it's helped tradies stay afloat and got more people into the housing market. but not all have benefited, with some aspiring buyers of new homes missing out despite taking out larger loans. Nasim Kadem reports.
Before the pandemic hit, Usuru Thuduhena was struggling to buy a home. With the help of the federal government's $25,000 home builder grant, she managed to build a bigger and better house.
The pandemic is a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and it's like we are lucky in Australia. The government helped us.
In Lake Macquarie in regional New South Wales, Brianne Buckley and her husband, Grant Clark, were also able to build thanks to the grant. They moved into their 4-bedroom home last month, the same day Mr. Clark proposed marriage.
It was a really exciting day. It's been a long time in the making for us.
More than 137,000 Australians applied for home builder grants of up to $25,000. Research estimates it boosted economic activity in Australia by more than $120 billion and supported almost 400,000 jobs. Economists say home builder, together with low interest rates and strong savings from households, were factors that increased the price of building a home.
We will continue to see, some construction activity. It won't be a cliff, but we also don't think that we'll see quite as much activity as we did last year.
For many Australians, home builder was an economic saviour. But some people who thought they were eligible missed out when application portals closed in April. They borrowed $25,000 from family in the hope that they would get the grant and now have been left with big debts. Miss Thuduhena says she feels bad for people who missed out on the grant, but that home builder allowed her to break into an overheated market.
I was okay. I just wanted a house. I just wanted to enter to the housing market.
It's a dream that many others are still chasing. Nasim Khadem, ABC News.
Queensland's tourist destinations are enjoying relatively strong demand this holiday season, with hundreds of thousands of visitors pouring into the state since borders reopened. But cruelly, those businesses are facing one of their toughest challenges yet, with significant staff shortages. Many workers are being forced into isolation as COVID cases increase, and industry leaders believe there could be mass closures.
Cabanas and umbrellas pack Noosa beaches as far as the eye can see as a wave of tourists reclaim the luxury holiday town.
Noosa has been absolutely buzzing and all of our houses are full and looking like being full for the next 12 months.
In the far north too, the return of southern visitors is helping rebuild Cairns' embattled tourism industry.
On the whole, we're still at least a third down from where we would have been pre-COVID for this time of year. But we are quite satisfied nonetheless.
More than 600,000 visitors have applied to enter Queensland since the borders reopened in December.
We have had a few good weeks of trading, despite the twists and turns that this COVID situation has taken.
But despite such high demand, businesses are struggling and some shutting down. As COVID spreads, many are facing crippling staff shortages, with workers forced into isolation because they're deemed a close contact or they test positive.
That is a big challenge for many businesses throughout the states who simply do not have enough staff to be open at full capacity, or in some cases, sadly, to be open at all.
We've got a number of staff who are testing and isolating and not available.
Other businesses are falling victim to the same fate. Rio Capurso has temporarily closed his Noosa restaurant as his staff recover from COVID or wait for test results.
No, unfortunately, we are closed for today.
He's frustrated by ever-changing COVID rules and requirements.
It's becoming an incredible challenge for everyone to be able to understand what to do.
Industry leaders say making rapid antigen tests free and more accessible will ease the burden. So too, bringing forward the return of quarantine-free international travel.
There are simply not enough Australians currently here. There's not enough to fill all those positions, so we need to open the borders.
The commencement of the return of international tourism will signal the start of the real recovery, the true recovery from the pandemic. So we've got our fingers crossed.
The Queensland government says there'll be no border restrictions or quarantine requirements for fully vaccinated overseas arrivals once the state hits the 90% double dose mark. But with no date set, there's continued uncertainty for businesses as many fight for survival. Kira Jones, ABC News.
A man has been arrested in connection with a fatal hit and run in Melbourne's southeast earlier this week. Police say the 29-year-old Endeavour Hills man turned himself into the Melbourne West Police Station this afternoon. It comes after a 58-year-old cyclist was struck and killed at the intersection of Hallam Road and Pound Road in Hampton Park at around 4:30 on Tuesday morning. It's alleged the driver fled the scene in a stolen Holden Cruise that was later found burnt out in Glen Waverley. Police say the victim's family is devastated.
It's indescribable the pain that they would be going through. To lose a loved one in that manner, just going about his business.
Anyone with further information about the incident is being urged to call Crime Stoppers. To finance, and the local share market has finished the week on a high and rebounded from yesterday's heavy losses. Here's David Chow.
It's only the first week of 2022, and already the market's been on a volatile roller coaster from record highs to massive sell-offs. Today, investors decided to buy the dip and pushed the All Ords up by 1.2%. Some of the best performers were Medibank and software firm WiseTech Global. James Hardie shares fell after the company sacked its CEO for bad behaviour, but didn't give much detail. API, or Australian Pharmaceutical Industries, did even worse. It's the company which owns Priceline, and its share price tanked after Woolworths took a look at API's accounts, then withdrew its takeover bid. The Aussie market did a lot better than everyone else today. Wall Street finished trading slightly lower, while European stocks fell sharply, and it was a mixed bag across Asian markets. The Aussie dollar was relatively steady after yesterday's big drop. It's buying 71.6 US cents. And oil prices rose quite sharply after an uprising in Kazakhstan, which raised concerns about supply since it is a major oil producer. And in case you're wondering, the rapid spread of Omicron is having an effect on consumer spending. Australians in all states are feeling more worried about going out, and those in the two biggest cities are especially worried. In Sydney, which has the most COVID cases by far, spending has even dropped to its lowest level since COVID first struck in 2020. Economists say it won't derail the economic recovery in the long run, but it will be a speed bump for the first quarter GDP figures. But the silver lining, especially for those paying off a mortgage, is that the Reserve Bank is unlikely to lift interest rates this year, even though Australia's annual inflation rate is at its highest level in years. It's not quite rampant, say, compared to the other countries you see on this graph, who have already lifted rates or are about to do so very soon. And that's finance.
A century from Johnny Bairstow has rescued England on day 3 of the 4th test against Australia at the SCG. Australia made a strong start to the annual Pink Day before the tourists fought back, with Bairstow raising his 100 in the last over before stumps.
Get your pink bandanas!
If you weren't in pink at the Sydney Cricket Ground, you were green with envy. Isolating with COVID, Glenn McGrath still made an appearance in wax on a day that raises money for nurses to support people with breast cancer and honours the late Jane McGrath. After a 2-hour rain delay, Mitchell Starc wasted no time in creating chances.
One of those ones that Carey has been leaving.
It wasn't a costly mistake.
Bowled him! Starc!
Zach Crawley rode his luck, felt the pain.
That could have gone anywhere there. That hurt Crawley.
And heard the death rattle.
Bowen gets his first one.
The MCG hero brought his form to Sydney.
Gone. Great catch, Smith.
The tourists were 4 for 36 at lunch.
Oh, it's out. Well, there you go.
Ben Stokes almost departed for 9.
Catch, drop, taken, no.
The all-rounder was also bailed out on 16.
Okay, it's Mr. Pad has actually flicked the stump.
Oh, that's a solid blow.
Stokes was troubled by a side injury, but it didn't stop him from hitting boundaries.
Stokes flowing into a drive, hitting the gap.
Boland was out of the attack after a fall, but was later cleared of any damage. Stokes hit his first 50 of the series.
Ooh, he went early, but it was really well bowled, but played as well.
He and Bairstow combined in a 128-run partnership before Lyon put Stokes on the back foot.
Oh, that's close. Yes, give it.
Bairstow shook off a nasty blow to the thumb.
Oh, man.
And found a willing ally in Mark Wood.
Oh, sixes galore.
Bairstow reached his first Test century in more than 3 years.
An incredible moment
Duncan Huntsdale, ABC News, Sydney.
World number one Ashley Barty has cruised through to the semi-finals of the Adelaide Tennis International. Barty sent down 17 aces on her way to a straight sets win over American Sophia Kenin this afternoon.
Barty last played Sophia Kenin at the Australian Open last year. Kenin had her measure then, but Barty wasted no time inflicting some revenge in Adelaide almost a year later.
Good start. Barty holds to love in the opening game.
The world number one simply better in the opening set, a strong service game and no sign of any rust in just her second outing since September. She broke her American opponent to go up 4-2 before wrapping things up with relative ease.
Emphatic set of tennis from the world number one.
A similar story in the second set, this one of Barty's 17 aces. Kenin showed some fight,
And she got onto that one. Yeah,
but Barty flexed her muscle, eventually romping to a 6-3, 6-4 straight sets victory in just over an hour, booking her place in the semi-finals.
That was an emphatic performance from Ashley Barty.
There's still work to do. We go back to the drawing board and continue to try and do all the right things, but it's been a really solid start and we're happy with the foundation that we've kind of set to start the year off.
Last night, top-ranked Australian male Alex de Minaur showed trademark grit in the ATP Cup. He rallied from a set down to win the second in a tiebreaker on his home court.
De Minaur is back in it. Takes the second set in the tiebreak.
He stormed home in the third against Frenchman Hugo Humbert to record a tough 3-6, 7-6, 6-1 win in the lead-up to the Australian Open.
What a turnaround from De Minaur.
I'm ready to go. I'm ready to see what I can do, go to Melbourne and hopefully put on a show.
The Demons' epic win was to no avail for Australia though. Russia claimed the last spot in the Final Four via a win over Italy. Chris Rowbottom, ABC News.
Well, we didn't need to head to the tropics for the holidays. It came to us instead. Thunderstorms, heavy rain and humidity. Last night, storms brought 85 millimetres of rain to Balmoral in our west. More storms today from the Wimmera right across to East Gippsland. Some so severe that the Bureau is warning of destructive winds and giant hail. 53 millimetres falling at Mount Buffalo. Cooler southerly winds moved into our southwest, but as high as 32 degrees at Charlton, Hopeton and Kerrang. Some big falls in Melbourne's west. 52 millimetres at Point Cook, 48 in Laverton, 47 in Hoppers Crossing. The temperature rose and fell with each bunch of showers, but it was muggy all day. 25.8 our maximum at 3:35 p.m. Right now in Essendon 21 and in Endeavour Hills it's 22. Showers or thunderstorms today in Brisbane, Sydney, Canberra, Hobart and Adelaide, but hot and dry across in Perth. Now you can just make out the remnants of Cyclone Seth off Queensland's southeast. It's still sending tropical moisture our way, feeding into a slow-moving trough over Victoria. So lots of instability here today, but that trough will move away by tomorrow, leaving us with milder and drier southerly winds and just a shower or two in southern Victoria with the onshore winds. On Tuesday and Wednesday, a few more showers will be coming our way. Tomorrow, Canberra, Brisbane and Hobart will all have a shower or two. Showers and thunderstorms for Sydney. Back home, showers and thunderstorms in the south and the east tonight. Tomorrow, light showers or drizzle in the south, but it will be a dry Saturday and mostly sunny north of the Divide, just into the 30s in the Mallee. Cloudy across the south and still humid in the northeast with showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon. Severe thunderstorm warnings are still current for those areas in yellow, and there's a brown rot advice for stone fruit growers. On the bay, a southwesterly wind 15 to 20 knots turning southerly, strong winds on the East Gippsland coast. Well, any showers around Melbourne will become less likely later tonight. You can see them pretty much moving away, although watch out for that lot around Ballarat. Much cooler and less humid tomorrow. Light showers or drizzle in the morning. It will be cloudy with a southerly breeze. 18 through to just 21 degrees. Partly cloudy Sunday with a southerly breeze. Monday back up to 29 with afternoon sea breezes. Then Tuesday a shower or two, 27. Wednesday the chance of a shower or thunderstorm. Thursday partly cloudy, 29, and a shower or two on Friday, 26 degrees. And that's all from the team here in Melbourne tonight. I hope you can join me again tomorrow night. Until then, enjoy your evening.